Hello everyone, this is Kat, and welcome back to My Hero Academia Podfics. This will be the continuation of the Mystery of Midoriya Izuku. This will be Part 9, Chapter 9, entitled Day 5. Some mornings, Shouta wishes he could sleep through his alarm and not have to go teach, especially with previous classes. It's not a feeling that happened often with this class, only now appearing after he had a particularly draining patrol. Still, he wakes up early because he needs to go see Recovery Girl, both for healing and to ask what the hell she was thinking, threatening to withhold medical treatment from a traumatized child. And there was also the meeting with Bakugo and his parents, which Shouta's not thinking about right now because only one crisis at a time. This morning was unfortunately overloaded with crises. Shouta thought that Recovery Girl was one of his few sane coworkers, but these past couple of days have been all about turning his worldview upside down and inside out. Izashi wakes up with him, fretting over his injuries a little, but not enough to crowd him. His lucky husband doesn't need to get up and get dressed for another hour or so. Despite a full day ahead of him, he's going to track down Problem Child's mother today in order to talk with her, rather than setting up a parent-teacher conference, because he's not fucking doing two in one day. Shouta refuses. He's going to engineer a meeting at a bakery where Hisashi had met her once. It was that bakery with those cat pastries, right? Where you met Midoriya's mother? Shouta asks Hisashi as he feeds Bastard. His husband blinks at him a couple of times, long blonde hair dripping over his shoulder as he gets Shota's coffee ready in a travel mug. There's concern on his face. Shouta can tell. Between how angry he was when he came home yesterday and the injuries last night, Hisashi has every right to be concerned. Yeah, he confirms before gnawing on his lower lip for a second. Shouta waits him out. You gonna be okay, Sho? You have enough evidence to make sure Bakugo and Midoriya aren't partnered together, so you can stop. And it's a tempting offer, Shouta thinks as he stares down at his first cup of coffee in his favorite cat mug that Namuri gave him several years ago. Only Hisashi really knows about how deep he's been getting in regard to Midoriya's case, while the other knows it's something to do with making sure Bakugo and the kid don't get put together for teamwork. He could just stop, close the metaphorical Pandora's box, and get on with his life with a deeper understanding of where Midoriya is coming from. But Shouta thinks of himself at that age, and his own distrust of adults outside of his parents. Even with that trust he didn't tell them what he was going through. He thinks of drowning in his solitude and hiding away from anyone who meant him any kindness for a couple of years until UA. Sometimes when the night is dark and his bed is empty, he feels that loneliness of his younger years creep up on him like an old friend. He thinks of Midoriya's wan smile and his bright eyes, red shoes for people who will never know the power that lives in your skin, boogeymen with opposing forces to them. He thinks of two bullied kids, because even if you grow up, you'll always have to be a bullied kid, reaching out toward each other and understanding, for all their experiences are different. I need to see this through, he declares. Hizashi's eyes softened at that, and he smiles at him. One of those secret, soft smiles that Shouta gets when they're in the apartment, cat twisting around their ankles, the scent of coffee in the air, and something like pride radiating from the person who helped Shouta carve out a little bit of peace. Hisashi kisses his forehead. Then let's have faith, okay? It'll work out in the end. Recovery Girl heals Shota's injuries with a couple of kisses, the drop in stamina unnoticeable given how perpetually tired Shouta always is. He doesn't really know how to beat around the bush. So instead he dives right in, not ripping her a new one as he intended because, well, he thinks that she had good intentions but did a piss-poor job of executing them. Besides, the real anger Shouta wants is in reserve. It's the inevitable confrontation with Bakugo and his parents for their meeting this morning. He has to prioritize here with his emotions. I talked with Midoriya, he states, looking her in the eyes. He said that you refused to heal any injuries for him anymore. Shizenji-san, what the hell? The old woman sighs and settles back into her chair. There's a frown on her face. I'll heal injuries for him, of course, but after his fit with Todoroki, you saw how he broke himself, Aizawa. The boy needed a firm kick in the rear to figure out how to not destroy himself with his quirk. Shouta suspected this, of course. Recovery Girl was always willing to help people, but if she felt like they were overly relying on her quirk, or healing quirks in general, then she would have to switch to tough love. It worked, of course, in some cases, but Midoriya, given his track record with adults, it wasn't the best course of action. Be that as it may, Shouta says carefully, he's improved with his full cowl technique, and frankly, I don't want him to think that he has to hide injuries because he's scared that he'll get into trouble with you. While I won't break his confidence here, he has not been treated well by those around him, especially adults in his life at school. I understand what you wanted to do, but this was the wrong kid to do it with. He needs to know that he can trust you, and Right now he feels like you don't like him. I don't want to go to Nezu over this. He doesn't. He just wants her to treat Midoriya and maybe give the kid an apology for threatening him with this in the first place. But I will, because that kid's been bullied and self-treating his own injuries for years. I want him to feel safe enough to be able to go to an adult if there's a problem, especially with health. Because, frankly, a lot of them have told him otherwise. Don't be that for him. They lock eyes for several moments. Recovery Girl frowns. I was unaware of his past, Aizawa. I would have handled things differently with him if I'd known this. If you'll send Midoriya in during Homeroom, then I'll be sure to apologize and clear some things up with him. And really, that's all that Shouta wanted. Hopefully Midoriya would believe it. If not, then they can work on that. He's just glad that someone around here is willing to own up to things and fix their mistakes. Shouta rushes to the front gate, as nonchalant a way as possible after speaking with Recovery Girl to meet with Bakugo and his parents for the early morning conference. He sees a student with a tie done for once, arms crossed, a scowl on his face as he stands between a woman that has to be his mother and a zen, calm man that's probably his father. Aizawa-san greets the man with a bow. Bakugo Masaru, this is my wife Mitsuki. Thank you for taking the time to meet with us about Katsuki. Shouta nods to his student's parents. Bakugo-san, I would have scheduled this either way. You can call me by my maiden name if you want, the blonde woman says with a sharp grin. I go by Hano Mitsuki professionally. Gets real fucking confusing anyone saying Bakugo to refer to 3 people. Bakugo continues to scowl. Shouta decides to take this impending clusterfuck of a parent-teacher conference behind closed doors ASAP before the explosions actually start. All right, Bakugo-san, Hano-san, Bakugo, let's take this to a conference room. We're just concerned, Bakugo-san says as they take their seats. Katsuki's never had so many detentions before. The kid has a fucking temper, don't get us wrong, Hano-san replies as she rubs the back of her neck. He gets it from me, and I'm trying my goddamn best to learn how to control it. I've been in anger management for the year, even so I came from a loud family full of aggressive people who show their love by yelling at each other 1 second and then defending each other to the goddamn death the next. Not healthy, but, well, takes fucking time to unlearn that shit, you know? I'm right fucking here, you hag, Bakugo grounds out. His mother lightly cuffs him on the head, glaring at him. You probably got so goddamn much detention for a reason. If this shit keeps up, where will your dreams be, huh? Shouta leans back into the couch and looks at this family. I'm assuming you're not here to fight me on sending Bakugo to our school's guidance counselor. Bakugo-san shakes his head. Whatever you think is best on that front, we just want to know what needs to be done. Shouta looks at the 2 adults in front of him and at his student. He thinks of Midoriya's warnings from last night about how Bakugo would make a terrifying villain if pushed off the path to be a hero. If I may speak plainly. Please, Hano-san says. It's why we came here. Your son is a bully, Shouta lays out, simple and factually. He can see Bakugo gear up to yell, but Hano-san covers his mouth and raises an eyebrow. He sits fuming. Shouta plows on. I'm concerned on many levels, especially with the hostility that seems to show towards Midoriya. The kid admitted to me yesterday that Bakugo had been harassing him for several years. A couple people from their middle school confirmed it as well. The picture it paints is more of an action of a villain than a hero in training. Frankly, if I had the full picture earlier on, I would have expelled your son without second thought to it. He takes a deep breath, taking a moment to observe the family in front of him. Hano-san and Bakugo-san both look pale as the words sink in. Bakugo grinds his teeth together and Shouta continues. Even without the knowledge that I now possess, I should have addressed his behavioral issues earlier on in the semester. Due to the USJ incident and my injuries from it, I was unable to do so in a timely fashion. I'm not using it as an excuse. Something should have been done after the first battle practical when he disobeyed a teacher's direct order and discharged his weapon with the intent to harm another student severely. With what I've uncovered now, a large part of me wants to declare your son hopeless as a heroic student and either put him in Gen Ed or outright expel him from UA. That's when Bakugo can't hold his tongue any longer. What? Bakugo explodes, literally. Shouta can see the popping around his hands. You can't do that. Katsuki. Bakugo-san hisses with a sharp tone. Sit the fuck down. Now. It's clear that this man doesn't use that tone often with his son, because Bakugo instantly goes quiet, like someone pressed mute on a remote. He looks at his father with a scowl before sitting. As I said, I've talked with Midoriya, and he's asked for a second chance for your son because he knows that, unlike his previous teachers, I'll take him to task for this behavior. I'm not a man who gives second chances, but seeing how Midoriya is actually trusting an adult to handle this, I'm reluctant to betray his trust. And how that burns a little bit. Problem child is trusting him to take his wishes into account, and that kid is all about second chances. Sure, Shouta has given previous students a second chance before, but those that he expelled and allowed back into the hero course over the years when they learned their lessons. After bonding with Midoriya, he really doesn't want to do that here. But he will, even if it leaves a bad taste in his mouth. What do you need us to do, Aizawa-san? Hano-san asks. She sags into herself, looking small. It's not something that Shouta feels happens often for her. This is your son's second and only chance. Shouta makes it clear. He gives second chances, but only a second chance. He will go to the session with Hound Dog. He will be honest in that session. Any course of treatment that Hound Dog recommends, and I will know that anger management is going to be on that list. Bakugo will do it. He will not be paired with or against Midoriya in any exercise until Hound Dog and I agree that it'll be safe to do so. Any unauthorized quirk usage in class will mean that he is immediately expelled. Any further abusive language or intent to harm Midoriya will see him sent to Gen Ed or expulsion. When he is not in the heroics classes or quirk training exercises, he'll be required to wear quirk-suppressing bracelets so that he can learn when and when it is not appropriate to use his quirk. Shouta digs out the bracelets, thin and bright blue. Bakugo will only be able to get them off with Shota's fingerprint. It's something that's used in extreme cases, but it feels appropriate here. Bakugo's been getting progressively more stoic as Shouta lays out his punishment, but he can see the fear in those eyes. He meets them evenly. He will also be suspended for a week, with a black mark on his record for bullying, and his teachers will be informed. If there's anything else that I feel appropriate to add, then I'll let you know. I have a good working relationship with the teachers at the other hero schools. They won't be offering Bakugo a chance either. And I want an apology to Midoriya, one that will be sincere, and he means it at some point in the future. Shouta would say no more, calling Midoriya Deku, but that kid had picked it as his hero name, so he's not going to be able to stop that. Both of Bakugo's parents nod, looking thankful that he didn't outright expel their son over anything. Bakugo himself, however, looks like he's in a state of shock, like he jumped out of a plane without a parachute, and the horror of the situation just hasn't fully hit him. We'll start looking for a therapist for Katsuki tonight. Bakugo-san promises, face tight and voice solemn, no matter what the counselor says. He's also fucking grounded for the foreseeable future as well, Haru-san says, looking distraught as she turns to her son. I can't fucking believe you did that to Izu-chan, Katsuki. Is this why Inko doesn't fucking call me anymore? That jolts Bakugo back to himself, who crosses his arms over his chest and scowls. Bakugo's suspension will start today, he informs them. He'll be allowed on campus for his appointment with Hound Dog, and to clean up the explosions in the design lab. We'll also put on bracelets when you leave. They can only be removed by me. Bakugo-san nods solemnly. He'll be back in class on Monday, Aizawa-san. Thank you for bringing this to our attention. We apologize that it got so bad. Can't believe you're taking his fucking side, growls out Bakugo. And I can't believe that my son was a delinquent instead of a hero in training. Mitsuki snarls back. Life's full of fucking disappointments, Katsuki. You're doing what your goddamn teacher says, or I'll take you out of this school myself and send you to a reform school. Bakugo scowls and holds out his hands. Shouta takes the time to snap the bracelets on, activating them. His parents watch with sad eyes. We're so fucking sorry, Aizawa-san, she tells him quietly. Her husband wraps an arm around her shoulder. Shouta pauses at that before sighing. It's a bad situation all around with Midoriya and Bakugo. The Bakugos, in contrast to many of the parents of the students he expelled, actually seem to want their son to be a good person before being a hero. Besides, Bakugo spent most of this day at school or around other kids who praised him. That sort of shit does a thing to a person. There's really only so much that they could have done to curb the disaster, short of sending him to another school, and he doesn't know their financial situation well enough to judge how that would have worked. It's not entirely your fault here. Bakugo's teachers and peers growing up did him no favors. It's something societal. Harm was done to your son in return, but he has potential to be a hero. I, however, don't want him to just be a hero. I want him to be a good person as well. That's what I want for all my students. The potential that Bakugo has is dwindling in Shota's eyes by the day, though. Part of him would rather just expel the kid or throw him in Gen Ed and be done with it. That part that won out, though, however, is Midoriya pointing out to him what a great villain Bakugo would make if someone takes away his dream. The part where Midoriya trusted him to tell him that thought. It's less satisfying for Shouta, but one more chance for Bakugo to be better, and that's all he's giving him. Hopefully, therapy and discipline are what's truly needed here. Shouta doesn't do optimism well. Sometimes, though, a part of him longs for a bit of optimism, that maybe things will work out all right in the end. We'll get better. We'll be better. But the part of him that believed in wishing for happy endings died with Oboro. Shouta knows that if you want that sort of happiness, you fight for it with bloodied knuckles and steel in your spine. The world won't give it to you. You have to get it for yourself. You have to cry and curse and grit your teeth for your goddamn happy ending. It's never just handed to you. Shouta knows this. So does Midoriya. Now it's Bakugo's turn to learn that lesson for himself. He hopes, though, that Bakugo can in the end. Shota's not an optimist, but hope he can do. He sends off the Bakugos together. Shouta takes a moment to note the suspension and bracelets along with the black mark in Bakugo's digital records. He takes a moment to breathe, but only a brief fleeting instant that slips through his fingers. Part of him wants to take a nap before he has to go see his kids, but he can't do it yet. He has a chimera to see. I take it that your meeting with the Bakugo family went well? Nezu asks from behind his desk. They're putting him in therapy, and will follow any recommendations that Hound Dog makes, Shouta says. He knows he's on thin ice, though. I have the proof that he was Midoriya's bully. He's been suspended for the week, outside of seeing Hound Dog and cleaning up the design lab, in addition to quirk suppression bracelets that'll be on unless in necessary classes. Then the pair of them will not be doing the exam together, Nezu assures. I'm surprised that you didn't expel him. Midoriya asked for a second chance on his behalf and gave a compelling reason to back it up. Otherwise I would have, but this is his second and only chance. The principal nods and brings up the pairings for the final exams, moving the topic along. Perhaps swapping Midoriya with Todoroki, he suggests. Shouta takes a moment to consider the swap. Yaoyorozu needs a bit of confidence. She and Midoriya would do well at working together, despite not having worked together before. The kid is good at building people up. Yaoyorozu, meanwhile, would appreciate somewhat of Midoriya's analytical skills. They would work terrifyingly well together. Frankly, after this week, he wants Midoriya where he can see him as well. He's grown attached, even if it means the two powerhouse strategists of Class 1A would beat him in 15 minutes. Todoroki and Bakugo sound like a recipe for disaster. Given the look that he's seen Todoroki send Bakugo's way, he thinks that the kid would bomb the exam in spite of Bakugo. At the same time, though, the other pairings are solid. Shouta hopes that Todoroki's need to succeed would outweigh any pettiness that he would want to inflict on Bakugo. Still, he has to admit that the pairing would not be the best. It's a switch that I approve of, though if any of the other teachers have a suggestion, then I think we should hear them out, Shouta answers. Bakugo and Todoroki are only marginally better than Bakugo and Midoriya. We'll see what can be done, agrees Nezu. An unholy glint enters his eyes as he continues. As for Aldera, I'll have something ready within the week. What you sent me was disturbing, to say the least. If you could send Midoriya-kun my way at some point, I would appreciate it. He'll do that next week, probably. The kid was already having his world rocked pretty hard in Shota's eyes. Maybe after a couple of days he'll start feeling pretty stable again, and Shouta can bring him in to Nezu. Though the thought of the two of them together is slightly terrifying. I would like to be there if that's all right. He's gotten comfortable around me. Not All Might. I think the problem child is scared of disappointing his mentor. It's hard admitting this sort of thing around people you respect. Only Hisashi and Oboro knew the burning shame that Shouta felt when he admitted his own past with bullies one late night while at a summer training camp after he had joined the hero course. Midoriya idolizes All Might, and the man just fond of the kid as well. He's not going to make Midoriya spill his past in front of him. That'll be on his timetable, when Problem Child realizes that it doesn't make him weak. They didn't win. Not with him, not with Shouta. They survived and they won. Of course, he'll make damn sure that Midoriya will come to this realization, because, it's the most satisfying one that a bullied kid could ever have. Midoriya looks happy when Shouta enters for Homeroom. He looks well-rested and laughs at something that Todoroki says next to him. His tie, for once, is actually tied correctly, judging by the slight blush on both of their cheeks. Shouta thinks that Todoroki was the one who fixed it. Everyone quiets down within 3 seconds. He feels a bit of pride at that. They're learning. Good. Before you ask, Bakugo's been suspended due to his behavior over this past week. A lie, obviously, but not one that he'll get into. A silence falls over his homeroom before they explode in questions. Shouta has to activate his quirk to calm them down. I will not be getting into this. Bakugo will be back after a week, and you will not harass him about it. Midoriya stares at him with wide eyes in the silence, but there's something in there. Relief, respect, fear. Shouta can't tell. Todoroki, meanwhile, ducks his face to hide a smile from prying eyes of others. Ida and Yaoyorozu are in charge for Homeroom. Someone wake me up when it's time for ethics. God knows someone has to teach them how to be ethical heroes. Where else would they learn it from? The Hero Commission? Those unethical bastards wouldn't know heroic ethics if it slapped them across the face and sang Kimigayo. Still, he's the normal amount of tired. On top of the tired from Recovery Girl's quirk being used on him, Shouta really needs a nap right now, but speaking of Recovery Girl... Midoriya, Recovery Girl wants to see you also. Make sure that she gives you a note if it runs long. The kid blinks, surprised. He's probably working through the shock of Bakugo suspension still. Shouta merely raises an eyebrow in response. Midoriya must have seen something that he trusted in Shota's face, relaxing a bit. Okay, Sensei. He agrees before heading out the door. Shouta, glad that his too-busy morning has been handled, wraps himself in a sleeping bag and passes out into blissful oblivion as the kids explode into whispers and theories over Bakugo's suspension. Shouta remains unconscious until Yaoyorozu wakes him up with what looks like a freshly brewed cup of coffee. She wins, being his favorite for the day. Yaoyorozu gives him no headaches and cups of coffee instead. Shouta needed to talk to his homeroom before lunch about their afternoon class with All Might today. He was packing things up when they were headed to lunch when he saw Shinso lurking outside the doorway. Shouta watches as some of the other students raise eyebrows and walk past Shinso. He, meanwhile, racks his brain to remember if he had plans with his still-recovering protege for the lunch period. Midoriya, Shinso says, shifting awkwardly. Shouta was hoping that Shinso would reach out to the kid after their talk yesterday, but he wasn't expecting him to do so as quickly as he has. Problem Child, walking with Todoroki, Uraraka and Ida, beams at the purple-haired teen. Shinso-kun, how are you doing? I meant to talk with you after the sports fest. Midoriya says excitedly, and Shouta has to hide a smirk because Shinso's doing his whole social interaction as a fucking nightmare face. I heard that you're good at analysis, he offers awkwardly. I'm still working to get into the hero course, and I thought that maybe you could help with mine. And Midoriya lights up like the sun. Too bright, Uraraka whispers under her breath. She's only half joking. That would be so great, Shinso-kun. I think you have such an amazing quirk. It's really perfect for heroics. Honestly, the application of it is endless. Do you mind if I write some stuff down? I keep quirk analysis journals, and it's in code, and I keep them locked up too, but if it makes you feel more comfortable, then we can just talk. Why don't you join us for lunch? That'll be okay, right, guys? The group that teachers have jokingly nicknamed the Teku Squad voice their assent, and Shinso looks a bit bowled over at the friendliness of the group, especially how Midoriya so easily compliments on his quirk. Sure, Shinso responds. Sounds great. All right, he grins wider and brighter. I have a lot of questions. With that, Shinso is swept into the tide of Midoriya's friend group. He looks a bit uncertain and a little overwhelmed, but there's an upturn in his cheek that makes it mean that he is enjoying it a little bit. Good, he wants his protege to make friends with his kids. It'll make it easier when Shinso gets into the hero course. It did show a world of good, too, having friends that saw him for him. It's a hell of a thing. Engineering a run-in with Midoriya Inko is child play. It's Shouta scouting the bakery until he sees a plump woman with very familiar green hair. She looks like a mother, Shouta thinks, and mothers, of course, come in all shapes and sizes, but, well, the softness and the gentle fretting that she does to the employee behind the counter. Yes, Shouta doesn't really know how to describe it more. Like how once he heard Kaminari describe Uraraka as someone naturally friend-shaped. Clearly, Shota's been hanging around this batch of kids too much, paying attention too much, caring too much. He knows this will be the first class that he has that he'll follow all of them through to their 3 years at UA. Maybe he's just getting soft, but he finds that he doesn't have it in him too much to worry about the implications of that. Most of those little agents of chaos have wormed their way into his heart. He sighs as he slumps in, looking at the cat-shaped cream puffs in the case. The dark chocolate cream isn't too sweet, and the pastries are pretty cute. He's debating on how many to get when Midoriya-san bumps into him. Oh, I'm so sorry, sir, she exclaims, not caring that Shouta didn't even stumble. She's dressed in a sensible office wear, though the flower clip in her hair adds a sparkle of personality. It's fine, Shouta says to her before eyeing her for a second. The woman fidgets, twisting her hands much like her son. Midoriya-san. Her eyes go wide, but she's also a bit guarded as well, the way all women do when a man they don't know says their name. Fuck. Shouta wishes that he was better at this social interaction thing. Oh, I'm sorry. Have we met? I don't recall. No, not officially, but your son looks like you. I'm his homeroom teacher, Aizawa Shouta. He sees the moment when his name clicks in her head. Her eyes lose that guardedness and shoulders relax. She smiles at him, making it clear that that's where her son got his signature grin from, and bows. Oh, Aizawa-san, it's so nice to meet you. I'm Midoriya Inko. Izuku talks about you a fair bit. Please, let me buy you a coffee or something. Would you like to join me? There's still an edge of anxiety to her, much like Midoriya. Part of Shouta wonders if that's just her personality or if there's something else underneath it all. That sounds fine, he agrees. Though you don't need to buy for me, Midoriya-san, I can handle it. The woman looks ready to argue, but Shouta in his own way steamrolls over her. buying both of their coffees and pastries. She relaxes a bit more when she sees him getting the cat-shaped cream puff, like he passed some sort of food-based test. There's a little seating area outside the bakery and surrounding businesses. The day is sunny, summertime bright, that makes Shouta take out the sunglasses he carries on his belt. The brightness likes to fuck with his dry eye at times, and worse, if the light hits him in the eyes right, then a headache will arise to fuck with his day. Your son said that you work at a law firm around here, Shouta asks, not wanting to immediately dive into why he tracked Midoriya-san down. Oh, he mentioned that to you, she says brightly. Yes, I work as a paralegal for a small firm. Right now it's all hands on deck at the moment, so I'm sleeping at a co-worker's apartment so I don't have to take the train home after midnight. Izuku worries otherwise, and frankly, I don't feel all that comfortable either, making the trip that late. Though I do have to leave him at home, and I hate doing that. But he's never made me doubt that I couldn't trust him with the responsibility, and it's important for parents to encourage a child's independence, even though I worry. Oh gosh, you were probably trying to be polite, Aizawa-san, I apologize. Her cheeks are pink with the ever-present smile on her face that turns more hesitant. Well, that definitely makes it clear that Midoriya takes after his mother in a multitude of ways. You answered the question that I asked. It's illogical to apologize for it. She blinks in surprise before chuckling. I suppose it is. It's a habit that I could never really quite break, though. I'm afraid it's something I passed on to Izuku as well. The two of them sit in silence for several minutes, sipping their coffee and enjoying the afternoon sunshine. It's Midoriya-san who breaks the silence. Midoriya-san looks at him with green eyes a shade darker than her son's. I was wondering how Izuku's doing in your class. He told me that you gave Katsuki detention the other day. I did. He considers his coffee, and the woman in front of him. He could be delicate here with the problem child's mother, or he could go for honesty. Either way, the other option could lead him to getting what he doesn't need from her. But Midoriya appreciates honesty. He imagined that the kid's mother must be the same as well. Frankly, he can't imagine the amount of bullshit that Midoriya Inko has had to deal with since her son was declared quirkless, and how many roadblocks were thrown her way because she seems like the type of mom who would try to do right by her kid. But the world is cruel. Those kids had decent quirks. Midoriya, until recently, was quirkless, and to those with small minds and large egos, worthless. It made his blood boil. No child is ever worthless. Shouta decides on honesty in the situation. He has a feeling that it wasn't something that teachers ever have given her. He puts down his coffee cup. Allow me to be blunt, Midoriya-san. President Mike told me that I would run into you here, and I came with that intent. Your son's not in trouble, but I was hoping that there are some things that you could clear up for me, and I wanted to do so in a setting that wasn't a parent-teacher conference. Your son has just started trusting me, and I was concerned doing so would regress him on some level. Midoriya-san considers him for a long while, long enough that Shouta thinks that he may have blown it with her. She nods, though, looking thoughtful. Thank you for being honest with me. What would you like to know? It's come to light that your son has been bullied by Bakugo. I've already talked with him and his parents, along with making sure that the two of them won't be partnered in exercises or studying in class together. There's a whole litany of things, actually, that we agreed on for his continued entry in the hero course, suspension amongst it. I can send you everything later. In my investigation, I discovered that your son's past schools have not been the best for him. No, Midoriya-san agrees, looking sad. They have not. One of the partners of my firm tried to bring a case against his junior high after I came home, finding Izuku with burns and scratches on him, but he refused to talk, and the school had claimed that their footage recycles every 24 hours. Nezu, UA's principal, is already compiling a case against both Aldera Elementary and Junior High. If you tell the lawyer at your firm that helped you with the original complaint, then he would be happy to help further. Midori-san stares at him. Her lip trembles. Oh no, she's going to cry, isn't she? Didn't Hisashi say that's where Problem Child got his endless well of tears from? Shit. Shota's not good with tears. She reaches out and grasps his hands in hers. Her grip is firm and tears run down her cheeks. Thank you, she says, fervently and reverently, like she's saying a prayer, like he's given her a wish granted. Shota's heart breaks a little for this woman who had a child the world said was nothing, but who she loved and cherished despite all that hatred. Fuck, she must have felt so alone. I'm sorry that no one did this for you sooner, Midoriya-san, he says quietly. Your son is going to be the best of us one day. It's not a lie or a logical ruse. It feels like a statement of fact, a prophecy, something like that falling off of his tongue. If he can get Midoriya to curb his self-destructive tendencies and trust others more, then he could truly be the best of them. His class at times remind him of a garden yet to flower. Put in the effort now, they'll bloom beautifully, maybe even change the world, especially with Problem Child at the head of them. Now, isn't that a hell of a thought? He digs out some tissues that he brought with him and dabs at her eyes. I worry about my son, Midoriya-san confesses once she's calmed down. Her eyes are a little puffy and her face is red. He's had a rough go of things, with his quirk coming in suddenly and late. We thought he was quirkless. He should be by all rights. I don't really know how or why it emerged, but he always wanted to be a hero. I probably wouldn't have been as supportive as I could have, and neither of his teachers, but UA has been good for him. She has no clue how her son manifested a quirk either, or if she suspects something, then she's not sharing it with him. There are two legends in the world of underground heroics. How true are they? She meets his eyes, voice holding a touch of wonder that breaks Shota's heart further. He has friends and supportive classmates. He comes home so happy, telling me about his day. He has teachers who care, and I was worried after that USJ incident, but you protected them. It made me feel better, knowing that he has someone like you in his corner, Aizawa-san. Please, continue to look after him. Shota's not one to offer comfort through words. Hisashi, the sap, says that Shota offers his care through his actions, through touch, through 1,000 other little things that make up how he feels for those he cares about. He bows his head forward to this woman. I promise that I'll do my best. Because that's the only promise that he can make to the woman that he knows how to keep. All right, everyone. This concludes Chapter 9 of The Mystery of Midoriya Izuku. Chapter 10 will be next. I hope you all are still enjoying, and as always, thank you so much for listening.